Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Okay, we've got Yo Girl. Hello. Hi, Endovert.
Hello.
Hi, Dariana Pineda. Hello, everybody. It's me and my sister, Stacy. Thank you for joining to talk about the Midnight Library. I'm trying to go to my highlights for the Midnight Library. Mm. Hello. Can't wait. All right. Glad to have you all joining.
Hi.
Okay, we're going to test out some lighting. What do you think? I think that actually does work.
Okay.
What do you think?
Because y'all wearing black shirts.
Yeah, I was thinking we didn't have any contrast. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. We're about to jump into the live. Good evening. Hi, Teresa.
Hi,
How
Teresa.
are you? Okay. Now, Stacy said this is your first time on camera.
Yes.
So she's a little nervous. I know she's going to do great.
Thank you.
She is going to do great. Okay, so let's start with introductions. For anybody who doesn't know me, you just happened in here. My name is Stephanie Yates Anya Steph Anya. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I am in a book club, or started a book club called What's on Your Page, where we break down books. You know, sometimes we do self-help books, sometimes we do psychology books, memoirs, novels. And this month we are talking about Matt Haig's The Midnight Library, which is one of my favorite books. And today we have a special guest for the first time, my sister.
Hi.
Stacy Yates.
I'm Stacy Yates. I am a media specialist or a librarian at a high school. So I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have her. And I thought this would be so cool to have her here for the first time, because for those of you who have read The Midnight Library, which, disclaimer, there will be spoilers all throughout this live. We will be talking about the end. We will be talking about everything. So if you want to read the book and you don't want any spoilers, this might not be the time for you to watch this video, but you can always come back. But this book is a book that explores a lot of mental health issues. And one of the guides through the mental health is Nora, who's our main character's librarian, Mrs. Elm. Now, I believe this was her high school librarian, but you were thinking it was elementary
school. I felt like elementary, but I might be wrong. I
actually thought it was elementary when I first read through. But then, based on when her dad passed away and things, I think that it was her high school. Y'all let me know, was Mrs. Elm her high school librarian or elementary school librarian? But either way, I thought it'd be cool to have my own personal little librarian on here to talk about, her experience working in high school as well. Hi, Gabrielle. You said, hey, fangirl moment. I love you, and the videos and books have been so helpful. Oh, I'd love to read that. And you guys, anybody who's just here to find out what our next book is going to be, the book that we'll be reading, that we'll have our meeting in April, is going to be How to Keep House While Drowning. Again, that's How to Keep House While Drowning. That is an amazing book, and we will talk more about it at the end, but just giving that announcement for anybody who's curious about what we'll be reading next. Okay, so let's go ahead and start hopping into talking about the book. First, let's start off. Oh, and Dulcie already has gone in there. What is everyone's rating of the book? So let me look at this poll, what you guys have going here. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, unfortunately, you can only do 4 options on here. So if you gave it a 2-star, unfortunately, that's not an option. If you gave it 2 stars, go ahead and give it a 1. Just so I know what everybody's ratings are. My rating for this book was originally a 5-star, which is why I was super excited for us to read it for the book club. It's a book that I'm always referencing because I loved the blend of mental health topics with actually a novel. I've actually heard a lot of criticism where people talk about how one of the things they don't like about the book is that it's just a self-help book in disguise. But to me, I love that aspect of it. You know, as a person who enjoys reading nonfiction and especially reading psychology books, I thought this was a great way to make a palatable story that encourages hope, and also relies on a lot of philosophy to kind of help support the story. So for me, it was a 5 star for the first time I read it. And then with the reread, I didn't enjoy it as much as the first time. And I think it's because the whole time I knew the ending. Mm-hmm. If you know the ending of this book, I truly think that takes away from your reading experience. So just knowing that this book, like I know that in the end, again, I'm about to say a major spoiler, but knowing that in the end of the book, she did go back to her original life. And I will give a summary for anybody who's curious about what the book is about. Just knowing that she did go back to her original life, when you know that the whole time, I think it takes away. Because my first time, I was just so excited to figure out which was her major regret. Yeah, which life is she going to choose? What regret was the biggest regret? So I totally didn't see it coming at all. So what would you say is your rating of the book?
So I rated it a 4 out of 5, only because of my selfish desire to actually know what the end was going to be. I wanted to know what was going to happen in her life. But I do love that the story is about her realizing her life could go anyway. You know, that's the point, is that don't give up now. And I personally don't like self-help books at all. Like I hate self-help books. I know, but I love this book. Yeah, definitely a 4 out of 5 for me. I think it was great. I just really wanted an ending. So that's the only reason that I gave it a 4.
I could totally see that and understand why. Because you know what's so interesting too is how your memory gets messed up about things. Because I thought we got an ending. Like in my heart, I was like, well, I know that in the end, she goes back to her regular life, but she gets with Ash and they start from scratch. And like when I got to the actual ending and that didn't happen, it wasn't until I talked to you that I realized wait, they never said that. So it really does encourage you to just kind of fill in the blanks for what you think is her happy ending. Right. But definitely, I think she basically pulls something from everything. Like, and just so I can, for those of you who didn't read the book and you're just here for the live and you want to know what the book is about, let me give you a quick summary and kind of help me fill in the blanks here because I'm probably going to miss some important stuff. Okay. But we are introduced to our protagonist. Her name is Nora Seed. And Nora is at a point in her life where she is extremely depressed and a bunch of just things. You know, you ever been in a situation where like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happens? That's basically what happens to her. And she gets to the point where she's ready to die. And so I like how the story is told from the beginning, where he's basically like, the author, he's basically like 3 days before Nora Seed decided to die, 2 hours before she decided to die. And she gets to the point where she's just so exasperated with everything going wrong, feeling like a failure in her relationships, failure in her career, still dealing with grief. She just felt like it was time to end her life. Trigger warning, by the way. Yeah. Obviously, we'll be talking about suicidality. Sorry not to say that earlier on. But that is definitely a major theme within this book. And so what we see is that she actually goes through with trying to kill herself. And what happens is she ends in this in between. She's not dead and she's not alive. She's in the midnight library where it's always midnight. So she goes there and her high school or whatever school librarian, she basically talks to her and she basically was a comfort for her when she was in school. And then she is like the person who is guiding her through this in-between experience as well. And she hands her this huge, heavy book that's hard for her to hold. And it's called The Book of Regret. And this is everything that Nora has ever regretted. And essentially, she goes through this book and uses it as a reference for any of her regrets that she may want to undo. So some of the things we see her do in the story, she gave up swimming. She gave up swimming when she was a teenager. She sees what it would be like if she didn't do that and went on to go into the Olympics. She also at one point quit being in a band with her brother. She went ahead and undid that regret and saw what it would be like if they made it to being famous in her band. Her cat dying. She wanted to go back and see what if her cat didn't die. So a lot of things that, you know, she got to see like what was the element of choice in her life versus what just happened. Because like when she wanted to go back and see what it would be like for her cat not to die, there was no world where her cat didn't die. Yeah. Because she had no influence over that. Her cat just had a disease and that was the cat's time to go. And actually the cat's timeline with her was the longest of the cat's life. sorry, was the longest of the cat's life. So that is the story. And what we basically see in the end is after she goes through all of her regrets, in the very end, she decides that she realizes that none of these are her perfect life, that a lot of these choices are things that she could still do, and that she didn't want to pick up and start from some other version of herself's life. She wants to just choose her life. So that's the story. But some of my favorite parts about this book are it's when she is like jumping from life to life, and she is trying to basically figure out like what's happening in this life. Like if there was any time that I would be laughing, it was then, like when I'm trying to figure out like what is it that when she's trying to figure out like what do y'all do in this life? Who are you? Where are you from? You know, like I just thought that was also funny. So looking at y'all's rating, so I gave it a 4 on my reread. Stacey gave it a 4 on her first read through, and it looks like most people, 56% of people gave it 4 stars, 33% of people gave it 5 stars, 11% of people have given it 3 stars, and I'm happy to see we didn't have any 1 or 2 stars. So let's also go ahead and start reading through some of these comments. I'm going to try to get the book on here if you don't mind reading with some of the starting with Sarah Lou.
Okay, so Sarah Lou said, I wanted to like the book, but I felt like the characters weren't fully fleshed out. I liked the concept, but I felt like the execution could have been better. Glad you guys liked it though.
Okay. So what was your rating then, Sarah? I'm assuming then that you gave it like a 1 star then, or 2 star,
a 3 star probably.
Well, if she didn't like it though, I feel like it wasn't a 3 star.
I mean, she could have liked the book. I like the concept.
Okay,
but she didn't like fully like the execution. So I feel like that could have still been a 3 star.
Let's see. I definitely have to reread it because I didn't see it as a self-help book. Maya. Oh, first of all, is this the Maya Ferguson that we know?
It is. Hi,
Maya. Yes. So I honestly didn't see it as a self-help book the first time that I read it either. I felt like it was like just a story, and I would see all of these people years later because I read this back in like I want to say 2019. And so when I saw that people were giving it such low stars, I kept seeing the same thing over and over again. This is just a self-help book in disguise. To me, any good novel should have some sort of message. Now, Matt Haig, the author, he is known for writing sometimes nonfiction or like compiling other people's stories or things together to address depression. So he's one of those authors who's very focused on mental health. And I'm assuming that he's also been in a place where he's felt depressed or suicidal before. And so I think that he is one of those authors where anytime you read one of his books, there's going to be some sort of like overt message that you're reading about. And so I can see why people would not like that, but I loved it.
I immediately saw that it was a self-help book. When our mother passed away, I got extremely depressed. So I immediately related to what Nora was going through. So I was like, okay, so you're telling me how to get out of that situation because I had experienced it. So I could definitely see like not seeing that. It definitely is just like a good story. But I think like Stephanie was saying, in any book, you're going to see different points of it that either it's just going to hit you or it's not. So
yeah. Like I just feel like if you aren't a person that has ever related to experiencing depression, or maybe you're either currently in depression and you're not really trying to read about that, like sometimes I'm in a mood to just escape. Like I want to read a book about some fairies or something that has nothing to do with my real life. If that's the case, totally get that. But for me, because I do read a lot of nonfiction, I thought this was like I was bridging the best of both worlds. Like I get to like get a great message, get something that I can maybe give to a client who's not very into self-help books, but something that can instill them with a sense of hope, because I'm working with suicidal clients every day. And I just love the message of, as long as you're still breathing, you still have choices.
Absolutely.
And it seems like, kind of cliche, but, it's hard. Sometimes we lose track of that when we're in the midst of fighting or with our depression.
I agree.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so Sarah, you're right, Stacey. Sarah said she did give it 3 stars. Okay, so Gabriella. Hi, Gabriella. She is one of the OGs in here. Always good to see you in here. She said, love that you and your sister get to discuss this one together on live. For both of you, what kind of client or patron, if any, would you be excited to recommend this book to? Great question, Gabriella. For me, like I was saying, I have some clients who are exactly in the place that Nora was in, but as you can see with Nora, she was at the point where she was completely giving up. From my perspective, if you're in therapy, there's a huge part of you that is hoping that you won't feel this way anymore and believes at some level that it's possible not to. And you're hoping that this therapist can suggest something that would get you to a point of just feeling at least a little bit better. For a client like that who maybe is escaping into books or motivated to read, I would definitely recommend this, or maybe the audiobook version so that they don't have to actually read it if they don't have the energy to read. That's who I would probably recommend this to. Anyone who either is maybe dealing with a lot of regret or feeling so depressed to the point of suicidality, I probably would not recommend this to a client who is actively suicidal, because once you get to a certain point, what I find with some of my clients, like I just had a client tell me that, there was big news that someone they knew had committed suicide, and they were just jealous that that person did that, right? So I would not recommend that to someone who is at the point where they have suicidal intent. But if someone has suicidal ideation, I think that could still be a good client. But obviously, you need to be careful with any recommendations that you give that could affect a person's state of mind. What about you? What kind of student would you recommend this to?
I feel like all of my students could read this. Definitely, like Stephanie was saying, maybe not if they're currently in that suicidal state. I actually do have a lot of students whose parents pass away and have often moved away from all of their families. So they're kind of on their own. And a lot of times they are coming to us for that help. So I wouldn't recommend that book necessarily to that kind of child. But I feel like all of my high school students could read this book just in case they got to that point or they thought they couldn't go on. A lot of them are, from 9th grade to 12th, they're just kind of telling you, what do you want to be? Like, what does your future entail? And it becomes very overwhelming and they can just become depressed from that. So I feel like reading this book, knowing you can you can work in a guitar store, you can own a vineyard, you can become a writer. You can do anything and it will be okay. And you do not have to do it today. And I think that this book is really helpful with that. So I would recommend it to honestly all of them.
Yeah, just all the possibilities.
Yeah, all the possibility out there. I mean, I think this is a great book. I almost want to recommend it to some of our ELA teachers to put this in the curriculum. It could really work for any of them.
That's true, because I don't think we have enough of a focus in school on mental health. Yet so many kids are dealing with mental health issues. I would say that's when your mind is probably the most vulnerable.
Right. And this book will help you see that you don't have to figure it out today. You don't have to figure it out by 18. And I think that there's so much job shaming. You can work at McDonald's for a few years if you want to. You can work at whatever. You can do whatever you want to do. And then later on decide you want to write a book or, become a professor. It depends on whatever you want to do. Like, focus on yourself and, the options are limited.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, being a librarian, were there any parts of her relationship with Nora that you related to?
Yeah. So there's a misconception in schools that if students are having issues, they're immediately going to talk to a counselor. Counselors are not readily available like that. So they usually go to a lot of different sources. A lot of times their teacher, but also a lot of times a library. In the library, we take a very big emphasis on catering to what children are actually interested in, because we want to give them those books. We even have events. I'm also an SGA sponsor at my school. So we just had a coffee house event, which might sound a little confusing, but it was more like a talent show. And the kids got to kind of show off whatever their talent was, whatever they were interested in. And they got to get clapped for that. And they won a prize, for being a part of it. And so we want to see what you're interested in so that we can give you books. But a lot of school does not work that way. You're told this is the assignment and this is what you need to do, because they're trying to get you to a certain state, which of course is important, but it's not like that in the library. There is no grade. We're not telling you who to be, how to be. We're asking you, who are you and how can I assist you in being that person? So yeah, I definitely kind of relate to their relationship, because often kids are having to tell me their personal interests, what's going on in their lives. And of course, oftentimes that goes even deeper, as to like what's really going on and what thoughts they're having. So I definitely get the relationship between Miss Elm and Nora, because I experience it every day.
Yeah, I think that is something that really made me want to include you in this, is just knowing like Stacey talks about her kids at her school all the time. Like they are her kids, like they are your friends, so like, they trust her to help them with like stuff. And it's exciting to see like that knowing those kids are getting that level of care from someone who, you know, the parents would never expect, oh, my kid's librarian is the person who like
who they talk to
emotionally through school. But I just love that you're able to provide them with that. Okay, so Sarah Lou, another critique she says is there were also some plot lines that didn't go anywhere. There was just that scene where she meets another time jumper, but Nora doesn't really ask any questions about it. I was curious to know more. Yeah, that did kind of fall flat. I would agree with that. I wanted to know more about his story. Like, his story seemed kind of more interesting than hers, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so you're just staying in the in between, like, and you're loving it. Like,
well, I think that he was really important because he was telling her, you know, oh, I have been doing this for years and years. I've been in so many lives. And I think that it was an important realization for her to go, I don't want to do that. You know, and I think that was the point of the character. I do get that they could have fleshed it out a little bit more, but I kind of see why the author did it that way. The point was that, you know, she realizes that she doesn't want to do that forever. You know, she wants to build a life of her own.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out too that I thought was really interesting for anybody who has been here for more than one of our book clubs, you know, one of the books that we read was The Bell Jar this past summer, and Sylvia Plath wrote that. And anybody who knows how her story ended, she did also end up killing herself. But I thought that, you know, I didn't realize from the beginning that Matt Haig chose to open this book with this Sylvia Plath quote. Saying, I want to live and feel all the shades, tones, and variations of mental and physical experience possible in my life. And the irony of her saying that and then ending her life at such a young age, it was kind of like, you know, a reworking where we got to see Nora almost making a similar choice at a young age, but actually experiencing all of those shades. And it makes me wonder if that quote maybe is what inspired him to write this book. Now, we are going to be doing a couple of giveaways this book club. So if you are interested in getting a copy of The Midnight Library, if you haven't read it and you would like a copy, either physical copy, e-reader, or audiobook, please, and this is only for the US if you want a physical copy, but can't open it up to other countries if you aren't looking for a physical copy. Please put your Instagram handle in the chat. I have to do Instagram because we don't do DMs, and we're going to be running a raffle based on anybody who is wanting to receive this book. So definitely put your Instagram handle in there and we will get that book to you in whatever format you prefer. Again, that's audio, ebook, or physical book. Okay. Okay, so oh, you know what? Actually, like I was talking about my client who was talking about being envious of someone who followed through on their suicidal intent. Nora says something similar in the book. She says, as she stared at Voltaire's still and peaceful expression, that's her cat who had a heart problem, that total absence of pain, there was an inescapable feeling brewing in the darkness, envy. I thought that was so powerful to when you get to the point where you're looking at people who have made the decision to end their life and you are wishing that you were them. You know, obviously that is a time that, you know, you're definitely in the pits of depression if you don't know that already.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure there are no other quotes that I wanted to pull out. Oh, another quote that I thought was really poignant. And a lot of the quotes here are quotes from philosophers. She really loved Henry David Thoreau. So we saw a lot of his quotes. But this is just a quote that I thought was really profound, which is, death is the opposite of possibility. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Sentiment?
Absolutely. You just give yourself a timeline and you say, like, I'm not meeting it. So, you know, you're stopping the opportunity to go forward.
Yeah, let me catch up on some of your comments. You have the chat on fire, so I'm trying to like keep up and to talk. Somebody said last time that they wanted a little bit more structure in the live, so I'm like trying to have my like agenda and everything, but also I always want to make sure I'm reading everything that you guys are saying.
I loved that comment.
Okay. Oh, yes, me too. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Valeria said, I loved that the life she wanted most was where she felt the most fulfilled was totally achievable. Her life with Ash.
Right.
That was my favorite life too, because she had Molly and she just had this good guy. She was doing her thing. She got her master's. Right. She was working on a book. She'd been a professor, Mm-hmm. And I believe like that any of these lives were achievable just based on whatever decisions that you make. But
absolutely.
But like the reality is a lot of times we face roadblocks that prevent even the simplest of things from being possible. Because, in that life, Molly was like 5, but in this life, Nora is 5 years older, so how would that affect her fertility and things like that, so there's so many times that I think one of the things that frustrated people about this book was that maybe it was too simplistic. Yeah. That, anybody can live any life, then you can have any possibility. And if you don't really believe that, and obviously we've got a lot of social factors, financial factors, very true, physical barriers, ability barriers that would prevent us from like becoming a rock star, for example. Nora happened to be a super talented person who had people who had expectations of her, but realistically, we don't want to be naive to the fact that we can't just all live whatever life we want to live. And I think some people just thought that message was a little bit too overt, that he was trying to communicate you can be anything you want to be in a roundabout way, when realistically maybe that's not the case. So I do absolutely understand that criticism, especially as I read it through the second time.
I thought that something that was said in the book, and I was trying to find it. I have a library book, of course, so I couldn't highlight. But she said something like no work drama, no family drama, no relationship drama. And I thought that's very simplistic. She has a good life, but there will be drama regardless. I mean, it's life. Things will happen. So I thought that was very simplistic too.
Yeah. Amber Palmer recommended The Alchemist, or said that The Alchemist is similar to the story. I've never read The Alchemist, so that's actually a good suggestion for me to read, because I actually loved this book. So if it's similar, then I would love to read it more. Okay, Sarah said, I rated the book as 3 stars because it wasn't horrible. It was well written, but I expected something different. I'd also suggest Una Out of Order if you enjoyed The Midnight Library. I've seen the cover for that, so I will check that out. Thank you so much for that suggestion. Let's see. Oh, how are you today? Love that. I think I didn't like that it tried really hard to teach us the lesson that the other lives we could, should, would have lived aren't always greener, if that makes sense. I get that. It feels like it was like just hammering the nail in on that point. Yeah. So I could totally understand that. Like, not a lot of subtlety to it. It was just like, yeah, here's the message. Message? What's that? Message?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so Power in Your Curl. I loved this book. There were so many good quotes in it. Literally so many good quotes in it. Like one said, most gossip is envy in disguise. Yes. That's real on both sides. I can't say there's a lot of times, I'm sitting there talking about somebody. I got to check myself. Like, now, why do you really not like this person? So sometimes you just are talking because you don't feel courage to express how you feel to the other person. And sometimes realistically, you might be frustrated because they might have something you want. So I definitely thought that was a good quote in there as well. I agree. Every book definitely has a message. I feel like it should, or why am I reading it? That's just my perspective. The only way to learn is to live. Great quote,
that was such an awesome quote.
Honestly, that's the quote of the book. Like, I feel like that pretty much summarizes this book. It definitely made me realize that I can do anything in my one life. I love that you walked away with that hope. Absolutely. Hey, Robin said, I really like alternate possibilities if it were a genre. Kind of like time travel.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Now, that is a genre.
That is a genre. Because I would love to read more books in this vein, but it's very hard to find.
It is.
There was a show, babe. What was that show called? Was it called Ordinary Joe? Yeah, there was a show called Ordinary Joe. I actually only started watching it because one of my clients worked on it and was talking to me about the production. I was like, oh, this sounds kind of interesting, like the Midnight Library. So when it finally came out and I watched it, I was like, oh, this reminds me of the Midnight Library because they're basically showing 3 different possibilities of his life. And you see what his life is looking like. In each episode, they had it like kind of color graded so you would know which life he was in. And it was very similar to me. Like, I wish it would have got renewed for a second season, but it was kind of a huge flop. They really didn't cast the right stuff, but I thought that the concept, it was incredible.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that was a really good book. Hi,
Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Okay, so if you guys have been in the lives before, then you might be used to seeing Rachel's face. That's my cousin Bestie. She normally comes on here for a lot of the lives, and we love to have her back. It'd be cool to even do like all 3 of us.
Yeah, because we're such a little crew.
But the problem is once we start talking like
last
night we were on the phone for like a quick 5-minute chat that definitely turned into being well over an hour, the 3 of us. So yeah, we did that for a long time. Thank you guys. Keep sending in your Instagram handles if you would like to receive the book. I will be reaching out to you if you won. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and run that raffle. That's the end of the Midnight Library raffle because we have some other giveaways coming up. Okay, let's see. Dark Matter. Oh, that Ndosi said that. That's Ndosi's favorite book, Dark Matter. Oh, Maya, you said that too. A good book about. Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna read it.
Okay, then you agreed. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, and Ndosi loved that book. And I got to listen to some of it, and I thought that was a great premise for a book. Okay, Sierra. Hi, Sierra is another OG. Her and Gabriella always have to call out and give them a special thank you because they're always here. Loving the sister duo in the book club. Yes, I was so happy. I was like, I didn't think she was gonna want to do it. I was like, would you be interested in like coming on the live? She was like, yeah.
So. I really connected with Mrs. Elm. Like she is right on brand. I feel like even in the way in the library, she's like, so what are you going to do? Like, I feel like I really relate to that because, you hear so many things, but you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, baby, so what's the plan? What's our plan? Yeah. And I loved that about Mrs. Elm.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too about just a librarian in general, like you were saying. Yeah, you find out a person's interest and you guide them to that section.
Yes,
you don't pick the book for them. No, you don't hand them the book. You don't make them read. All you do is help them.
Yeah, what are you
interested in? The right section, and they find it for themselves. Yeah. Oh, hey, Robin. Maybe in Another Life was another book that is similar. I loved Maybe Another Life. That's actually the book that got me back into reading back in like 2018. It's a funny story. I was working at a corporate job, and it's actually not a funny story, but you know how some stories are funny to you.
Yeah.
So it's not actually a funny story, but this girl, she brought this book for this other girl at my job to read, and she put it at the end of her desk in her cubicle so that she would read it. And I'm walking past this book like every day. I'm talking about for months. It might have been there for over a year.
Oh, wow.
Like she just like, you can just clearly see it right there. Like she was not reading it. So one day I decided to pick up the book.
and just take this off your desk.
Right. Okay. Like we're not even that close, but you're clearly not reading it. So and I love the cover. It's so pretty. And it was Maybe in Another Life. And that was the first Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I read. Loved it so much. I just have memories of like sitting at Top Golf. Like we were there with family and I was just sitting there like reading, not even playing.
I love a good page turner.
It was so good. That is a great book. That one is about also 2 different possibilities. And I ended up reading like Taylor Jenkins Reid entire catalog after that. And for those of you who might not be familiar with her name, I'm sure you're familiar with some of her books, like The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, which has been adapted into a TV series. She is an incredible author. I love her books. I think her most recent book is Carrie Soto is Back. Loved that book so much. Okay, congratulations to Teresa. You won our raffle for the Midnight Library. So thank you so much for putting in your Instagram handle. Okay, and so the next giveaway we're going to be doing is for our next book, which we'll be having the meeting for that one on April 30th. We'll be having that April 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the book that we'll be reading is How to Keep House While Drowning. That book is fantastic. Just to give you guys a little bit of a plug about that book, that is a book that is nonfiction, and it is really meeting you where you are. Like, we put these moral expectations on household chores and tasks and body care. And sometimes we're just not in a place in life where we can manage those things, or where we like feel so bad about ourselves because our laundry isn't done. And we put a moral value on those things. And she just talks very plainly about like the psychology behind this, how to deal with it, like practical tips for like how to just get the bare minimum done. I just love the quotes in there. Like, one of the first things I highlighted in that book is how she says that, and she's a therapist. Also, she said, I do not believe that laziness exists. And she goes on to say what does exist, like perfectionism exists, amotivation exists, difficulty with concentration exists. These things get in the way of us being able to do things that we might want to do or feel that we need to do. But she doesn't believe in laziness. So I think that that would be a fantastic book for us to read together. It's a really short book. I did a tandem read, mostly listening to the audio, and it was a 5-star read for me. So that will be the next book that we're reading, and that's going to be the next thing that we're doing in the giveaway. So if you're interested in getting that next book, please put your Instagram handle in there and put How to Keep House, and then we'll know that that is what you are putting in. And you're welcome, Teresa. Congratulations again. Okay, so Sarah, here's a question for Stacy. What's your favorite part of being a librarian, and what's your favorite book genre?
Okay, so my favorite part of being a librarian is the events. I love events. Stephanie can
She's
tell you.
great at planning events.
Oh my
So
gosh, it was like the best thing ever. I just love it when we get to have like, we did a book tasting. That was so much fun. The kids got in groups. They read, just the front, the back, and a little piece that I kind of grabbed from the book, and they just kind of said what they thought it was about, why they would be interested in it, and they got up in groups, and that was so fun. Like I said, we did the coffee house. We did a Black Love movie screening just to have them. I just love planning an event. That is my favorite part of being a librarian. And your second question, what is my favorite book genre? Definitely fantasy. And which is maybe also why I knew this was a self-help book, because it's such a stark difference from what I usually like to read. And it's,
and you love to watch fantasy too. Like,
I love
fantasy. Always.
My favorite TV show is Charmed. So, and my mommy's was Bewitched. So it's just what I'm interested in.
Yeah, you've always Charmed, Harry Potter, like you've always been into
the Magicians.
Everything.
I love the Magicians.
So that makes a lot of
fantasy
sense.
is my thing.
Yeah, so we started actually reading Fourth Wing together.
Yes.
So a lot of y'all are familiar with Fourth Wing. I'm getting to the super spicy parts now. Like,
I have rented it from the library, and I didn't get the version that Stephanie got for us. It's a different version. I guess it has a full cast and stuff. So I'm like, this isn't right. So I keep I don't know. But yes, we're gonna finish that book, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I wanted to talk about this in the book. I keep putting my hair back, but then I really don't want it back. So it's just a nervous tick. Okay, so Nora thought of how good it felt swimming in the pool, how vital and alive. And then something happened inside her, a strange feeling, a pull in her stomach, a physical shift, a change in her. The idea of death suddenly troubled her. Those little things that feel good are so important. And I thought that was like such a important pivot in the story, is that for the first time in her life, she realized, like, wait, if I wanted to die, why am I so scared of it?
Right.
Why am I so scared of dying? And sometimes when I'm working with my clients, those are the sort of inconsistencies that I will pull out of them. Like, they'll say something like, I'm going to end my life after I get my diploma. And then I'm asking, why is getting a diploma important to you if you're going to end your life? And those kind of conversations kind of let us know, like, there are still people that you care about, that care about you. There are things you still want to accomplish in life. But most of the time it's that people just don't think it's possible to do those things. Like, they lose hope in the possibility of life. And so a lot of my work as a therapist is gently instilling hope, because you really have to walk the fine line. You don't want to be toxic and positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't want to be like, your life will be amazing in 3 years. You just wait.
Yeah.
Like they're not an idiot. They don't think that I'm a fortune teller. But if I can validate, I understand that you're in a lot of pain and that it seems like the pain is worsening and death feels like the best way to address that pain. I can understand that.
Absolutely.
And it feels like one of the only things in your control. All I can say is that I have seen other people in this exact same place make it out on the other end. So I have hope. If you don't have hope, I understand that, but I will hold enough hope for both of us, right?
Absolutely.
So those are the kind of conversations that I am having every day. So the little things are so important. Like I had a client that I met for the first time. I was terrified, you guys. I was an intern, and this client had tried to in their format, they had tried to kill themselves over 12 times. And so that was terrifying for me as an intern to have a client who was in that predicament. But I've been now working with that client for many years, and they talk about how it's wild that it's not like they haven't experienced stress, depression, hopelessness, but they have not ever been suicidal since then. And they said they never thought that there would be a time in their life where they could say that with certainty. And so a lot of it is just about knowing that, sometimes those feelings are temporary. And sometimes, they're very long lasting, and I don't want to minimize that. But a lot of times my job is just to hold hope. So those little things are important because like with that client, for example, physical exercise was really important. Once they started incorporating that back in their life, they were able to really build a lot of motivation to at least wake up every morning because they were looking forward to doing that specific thing. So I loved that part of the book. I also like this part in that same, yes?
You said March 26th is the
April 30th.
April.
Yeah, April 30th
7
at 7 p.m. Eastern. Yep. So one thing that they said in the same chapter, is happiness the aim? I don't know. I suppose I want my life to mean something. I want to do something good. And that's what I hear most often. People are looking for purpose. Like it's an existential crisis. Like, why am I taking up space, being a burden on people? Like, what am I contributing? And that's most of the time the thing that I see most often when I'm working with clients who are at that point in depression where it seems like ending their life might be their best option. Okay.
This is Valerie.
Okay, let's see what you're saying. Valeria. Oh, Maya says she's still trying to get into fantasy.
Really? I love it. Oh my gosh.
I'm curious, Maya, what do you think it is that you don't like about fantasy? I would love to hear that. Valeria said, yes, taking care to pay attention to the little gifts of life and finding enjoyment where you can is so important. It really is. Like,
yeah.
Like, let's talk about what is the like smallest thing that brings you joy in your life these days? And I'm going to think about that too.
I think there's a lot of little things for me. I have struggled with depression quite a few times. I had a point where I covered all of the mirrors, even in like my bedroom and the bathroom and stuff, because I didn't want to look at myself, how disgusted I was with who I was. And I think that like these days, I'll just be happy that I can sit in my office. Like I would really be like, I am so grateful that if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can close the door to my office and sit in here and take a minute, like just those extremely small luxuries in life of like, I'm grateful that I have a car that I can go to work that does not break down every other week, because I had that before. It's just the small little things in my life that I am just so grateful that I get to experience and I'm not experiencing,
Yeah, I think for me, and I love that answer, especially coming from being a teacher and having like you never got that privacy. I think for me, like the smallest thing that I look forward to that brings me joy is lighting a candle. Like that tiny little thing can give me such like an endorphin boost. And to have a place to burn a candle and to have the ability to afford a candle you know, like something small, but that brings me joy. So I totally agree with you, Valeria, about finding those small joys. Not saying that a Kindle's going to cure depression. Please don't take that as I'm like minimizing depression to that. Just saying these are just some of the few small things that bring me joy.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Oh, Valeria said reading has been one of those life-giving moments for me lately. Yes, reading absolutely is a joy for me. The thing with reading I find though is like it's so highly, for me, highly dependent on the book. Like if I'm reading a book that I don't like, I feel like I'm in prison. And I know you think, well, hey, just stop reading it. But then I'm like, okay, so what am I going to read next? Or more likely, I'm always like, I need to see it through. Like right now, I just started a book. What is it called? Checking Mates by Ali Hazelwood. I read The Love Hypothesis, hated it, 2 stars. So I'm really worried that I just don't like her writing. And so whenever I'm reading a book that I just don't like, that is so hard for me. So I get nervous. But that feeling when you have a page turner,
oh, it's the best.
Because even this one's not a page turner. So you kind of have to like be in the right mood to like read it. I love a book where like, man, I don't care when I'm picking this up. Like this is not like, I can't go to sleep. Like I'm loving this so much. So I agree with that. Oh, Debbie, you just took your exam. Yay! Congrats and good luck on your exam. I'm glad that the videos, I hope they were helpful for you. Oh, Sierra, your little something is McDonald's.
Mine too. I saw that comment and I thought, oh my gosh, like the thought of like, oh, you know, I can go get McDonald's today. Oh, I love the thought. I tried to talk them into getting McDonald's, I think, during the 24-hour book read.
Oh,
I was like, we could just go get some McDonald's.
I don't think you said that loud because I would have been totally
I love McDonald's.
But you know what? You and Couture were both really well.
Pasta.
So
yeah.
I would have been totally down for some McDonald's. Oh, you said fries are truly my antidepressant these days.
Preach.
Sierra, when I say you need to put that on a shirt.
No, truly.
Like, you need to put that on a shirt and sell that. I would buy that shirt for you. Fries are definitely my antidepressant these days, too. Okay, foggy day when the sun rays finally come through. Oh, I love that, Whitney, the imagery. Yeah, I love that. Taisha said, I like that the book touched on roadblocks or barriers that keep you from happiness. It made me think about some of my barriers. Yeah, it definitely makes you reflect. Like, I just feel like you cannot read this book and not think about a time in your life when you were feeling low.
Oh, for sure. It brought it all back.
It's just inevitable. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So right now we still have 48% of people saying that they gave this book 5 stars. That makes me happy. I was starting to get worried because I was seeing like reviews coming through on Goodreads, which make sure you are friends with me on Goodreads. I love actually being y'all's friends on there. You don't have to just follow my reviews. I want to see yours too. But yeah, definitely. I was seeing some reviews coming through on Goodreads who were like giving it like 3 stars, self-help book in disguise. I'm like, oh no, is everybody gonna hate it? Because I actually love the book, and I was honestly so nervous to do a reread. Because, like, it's like, like, let's say it's your wedding day, and you had in your mind you had the most perfect wedding day, and then you go back and look at the footage, and you're like, oh my gosh,
like, what took place?
Like that did not look good.
I did not plan that.
Like, and it ruined your memory. That's how I was feeling about this book. I was like, I can't have this book, like doing this reread, ruining my experience with this book. Because I've been recommending it, but since the reread was a 4, I did have to take it off my 5-star favorite shelf. But it's on a new shelf now, which is the What's on Your Mind book club shelf. So it's still on my Goodreads if you're looking for it. Ooh, also singing musical theater songs in a warm shower. See, that's why I need Sierra to live in Atlanta. Because come on now.
Yeah.
If that's not me.
That's Stephanie.
If that's not me.
You guys are one and the same.
Come on now.
Y'all are together in this.
Listen, and the way that I just start I will
Truly
burst out singing in any setting. Like,
you don't want her
setting.
to start singing the song around you. She's going to find the harmony. And it's like, I was rapping Gucci. I don't know how you found harmony in that, but
you know, Gucci, he's kind of singing. He sings raps at times. Okay, let's see. The smallest thing that makes my soul smile is being able to drink my tea when it's the perfect temperature. I am a new mom, so I often eat my food, drinks while they're cold. Oh, Power in Your Curl. First, I hate that stuff is cold, but also it's so happy for you and excited for you being a new mom.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that first sip of tea when it's the perfect temperature. I agree with you. I'm a big tea drinker. Like I love hot drinks. So totally get that. Okay. What is the last page turner that you read? Ooh, good question. Let me go to my Goodreads. Let me go to my Goodreads. I think I know what it was.
Legendborn for me. Okay. Legendborn, I was just all day long. I love Legendborn.
I did like Legendborn too, but my problem with Legendborn was like it was so much lore. Like you literally had to learn 3 different lore.
No,
like,
truly.
So it was,
oh my
like,
god!
I'm not that familiar with King Arthur, so like it was just so much to like pick up on.
I agree, but I just loved it.
Okay, let me see. My last page turner. Woo! Great question. Okay, so this was actually a really short story that ended up being a page turner. You might know that Kindle Unlimited did like a little series of short novellas that they got like major romance authors to write. And there was this one I really loved called The Exception to the Rule, The Improbable Meet Cute. Loved that one. I definitely was reading that really fast. A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. I'm a big Nicholas Sparks fan. And I have been holding off on reading that one because the reason why is because Rachel, who's in here, and Rachel said, that's so me singing, I know. Rachel and my auntie, they love the movie A Walk to Remember. So it kind of felt like it was their thing. And I was like, well, I have the notebook. I don't have to like, well,
right.
But then my friend Ray was saying, like, let's do a buddy read together. And so we ended up reading A Walk to Remember. And I loved that one. It's also not a super long one. And then the other one I'll say, I know I just said like 3, but the other one I'll say is The House of Eve by Sadika Johnson. That book was so good. Picked that up on vacation, did not put it down, finished it on vacation. That was an excellent, excellent read. Okay, so let's see. What else are you guys saying?
Is it Valeria?
You know what? It's probably Valeria. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm saying Valeria. I love it. By the way, it's Valeria, like a Game of Thrones character, or like malaria. I'm so sorry. Valeria. I said Valeria about 100 times, but I should have known because it's not an A after the L, it's an E. I was reading it as an A. Mm-hmm. Okay, Valeria, have you read Ziwi's book? Okay, that's a question for her. Okay. Okay, A Walk to Remember can be our thing. Thank you, Rachel, for welcoming me into the Walk to Remember Club.
They love sad books. I couldn't even finish The Notebook. I used to run out every time. You guys remember
You've never finished The Notebook?
I did because Stephanie and Rachel growing up watched it. 1,000 times.
It's mandatory.
It was so sad. I never understood why they liked it.
Okay, let's see. All right, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that we really need to talk about. I made sure I made like an outline of things to get to because we're getting close on the time. And we're going to go ahead and close the raffle for how to keep house while drowning. Okay, so let me see. Anything else on our agenda? Somebody already asked you that. Perfect.
Okay.
Well, okay. All right. So the last thing we were going to open it up to is if anybody had, because I've been getting a lot of requests about sibling relationships. So if we can, kind of touch on it. If anybody has a question about a sibling relationship, since I actually have my sister on here. Mm-hmm. And while you guys, if you don't have any questions on that, then the last thing I wanted to ask you, Stacey, is why do you think that because what's his name? Hugo, his in between was a VHS store. They were talking about some people's in between was restaurants. Why do you think that Nora's in between was the library?
I think that, I know for me personally, I loved the library growing up. My dad was a pretty avid reader. He even took speed reading courses. He just loved reading. So he would take me to the library a lot, and it was so quiet that it really became a place of peace for me. So I think that it does that same thing for my students, and probably did the same thing for Nora. And on top of that, you have somebody that is actually running the library, a person that is actually creating this space of peace for you. So I think that, you want to talk to that person. If you're in a space in your life where you actually want to die and you don't know what to do with your life, I think you're going to go back to that person that accepted you as you were. Like I keep saying, the library is a place where we want to know about you. We want to know about you so that we can create and put books in front of your face that you are interested in. And not in a way that you have to buy them, or we're not trying to sell you anything. We honestly want to help you develop your character. And I think if you're in a place where you have not figured out your life and you're hating yourself or whatever, I think that you would want to go to a library. I would think that you would want to go to a place where they're giving you advice on how to become more of yourself so you can figure out more about yourself. Not become someone else. Her father wanted her to be a swimmer. Her brother wanted her to be in a band. Who was she? And I think when it comes down to who is she needed to go back to Mrs. Elm. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because they do say that, like, and you actually were talking to me about that before we even got to that point in the book, where she basically was realizing that all of her regrets were based on ways that she let other people down.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't join the band like my brother wanted me to. I didn't go to the Olympics like my dad.
I didn't marry Dan.
I didn't marry my ex. I didn't move to Australia with my best friend. Like, everything was based on what other people wanted from her. I think that's why her life with Ash was probably the life that we all loved and she wanted to stay in,
right?
Because it was the first life where nobody like forced her to do something.
Like she accepted as she was.
Yeah. And so I really love that. And I think that was, to me, the main takeaway. Like, I think it's easy to look at it as you should just know that the world is your oyster and you can do whatever you want. But I think that's also unrealistic. I think the main takeaway really was, make sure that the choices that you're making, that you can respect the people that you love and admire, but make sure that you're making those decisions because this is something that aligns with your purpose. Something
absolutely
that aligns with what you want to do, makes you excited. It's okay if you quit some things. You probably quit them because you didn't want to do them. Unless you're quitting something out of fear of success, it's probably good for you to quit it. You know? So I thought that was a really powerful message. And I do love the book both times, but I will definitely not be reading it for a third time. But it was okay reading for a second time. Okay, congratulations to Whitney. Hey, you got How to Keep House While Drowning. Thank you so much for entering into the raffle. Maya said, I love a good safe space. Powering Your Curl said, I'm curious to know how to healthily navigate conflict with your siblings to keep the relationship intact without sweeping issues under the rug. This is a great question for us too.
Yeah,
because we absolutely do experience conflict in our relationship. Should I go first or should you go first?
I have an opinion on it. I would definitely say to take your sibling as they are. I feel like a lot of times we struggle with trying to make people who we want them to be or who we see them to be. I think it's important to look at your sibling and accept them as they are. And you're going to have arguments. I mean, you're going to have issues with people you're close to.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, try to always see it from their perspective and try to talk through that perspective. Now, I do think that if it's one-sided and they're not trying to hear you, of course, reevaluate that. But as much as you can, try not to be that person on your end. Listen to them. Try to talk to them about whatever they're actually feeling or going through. And you're their sibling. You grew up with them. You kind of know their issues or what they might struggle with. So always consider that when you're dealing with your sibling.
Yeah, so I think in agreement with that, taking them as they are. I think another thing is to make sure that you're not afraid to communicate how you're feeling. I think sometimes what happens is we are so worried about our fears being trivial. So you're worried about like, okay, I don't want to tell you that I was jealous that you hung out with this person, or I don't want to tell you that I felt like you didn't have my back, because I know at the end of the day, it was just a group chat. Right. And so we feel like we're being dramatic, that our sibling isn't going to hear us. But I think we can model for our siblings, and also we can practice with our siblings just being real about what bothered you. Like sometimes I have to just be like I'm in a bad mood today. If I have an attitude with you, it's like, it's not you.
It's nothing about you.
Like sometimes I'll even cancel plans like, yo,
I can't be around
I
people
know
today.
I'm in a bad mood. This is not a good time for us to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes I'll be like, hey, we'll still come hang out with you. It's cool. We don't care. We know now it has nothing to do with us. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, we'll give you your space. That's no problem. So I think being real about how we're feeling and then also giving space, you know, I think an example for us, probably the last time we had any kind of conflict was months ago. It was like last year, like maybe September, and it used to be more frequent, you guys. Like,
I mean, she took something out of my closet.
Yeah.
I am screaming.
Because we used to do dumb stuff like, okay, my dad gives us school money to buy clothes. And we're like, hey, we're the same size.
Yeah, we're just going to share
Let's
the clothes.
just have double the wardrobe and share clothes. You know that.
I mean, it never worked
like,
out.
Kind of
I wanted to wear that today because you're wearing it. So take it off now.
It did work out for the closet purposes, but there were those mornings of like, of course, you have that on. I was going to wear that. So just stupid stuff.
I mean, so stupid.
But like, you know, one of our biggest things, you know, that we're learning is what are the triggers that as an adult we're facing. So I think like with me, my trigger will be like, we were having a conversation the other day, like sometimes we still engage with each other based on expectations from how we used to be when we were younger. So like a lot of times I assume Stacey's going to have an entitled view of something like, oh, you're going to expect me to just do this because that's what you want me to do kind of thing. Like, and you're going to be mad and not see my point of view. Okay. Because like she was a teenager growing up and like, she's the baby. And so I'm thinking like, that's how she's going to just be forever. And like, I'm always constantly amazed, like how off my own expectations can be of her. Cause I'm like, she's offering me so much grace, so much understanding, working with me, like even planning, we went on a trip for her birthday, just the two of us. And, you know, I had to be like, I can't do a lot of the stuff that you want to do. And I was just so anxious about it and worried that she was going to get mad. And she was like, that's cool. We're just going to figure out whatever works for you, like for her birthday, you know. But I had an assumption that was going to be an issue. So, and like on the trip, Stacey was like asking me to do something. She's like, and make sure you put it in there. I'm like, of course I would do that. But past me probably wouldn't have. Find the shortcut. Like, why are you telling me to do something and just, you know, throwing it in versus actually being careful and making sure I take good care of her stuff. And so that's her responding to an old me, and that's me responding to an old her. So when you're trying to navigate conflict with your siblings, the two things are mainly just to focus on is to me, like being real about your feelings. Be honest, even if it sounds like you're tripping, you know, or you're worried they're going to trip, at least be honest with yourself, bare minimum about what's bothering you. And B, ask yourself, am I giving them the benefit of the doubt? Am I having expectations that are inconsistent with who they are today or who they could be tomorrow? Am I giving them an opportunity to grow? And so, and like what Stacey was saying, like take them as they are. We can't make new people out of our siblings. You know, you want to give them an opportunity to grow, but at the same time, recognize where they are now. And if y'all have love for each other, try to give each other the benefit of the doubt. So that was our sibling question. So that was a great question. Power in your curl. You're welcome, Whitney. I'm so glad that you won. Let's see. How to navigate mutual respect in the transition to adulthood. I struggle with my little sister going to her 20s. Like we can't take each other seriously. Yeah, so that kind of taps on what I just talked about. You know, like as you're getting older, you still like engage with people like how they used to be, especially growing up together. Whatever you had to do to survive emotionally as a teenager, as a kid, like a lot of those things you don't need as an adult. And sometimes it takes people longer to realize like, oh, I'm using defense mechanisms that are no longer necessary, right? So like a lot of it is just giving grace. And sometimes we'll just communicate like, I experienced what you did to be this. Like, oh, okay. I can see why you would see it like that. That's not what I intended. And believing them. Because it's easy to be like, I know that's what you're saying, but I don't believe that. But just be like, it's easier on you to believe them too.
And I feel like as the responder, though, if they're telling you and they're like, hey, this is what I heard you say. It's important to be honest, though. You know, if you're like, because it's one thing to say, oh, I didn't mean that. I love you. But honestly, you know, blah, 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 blah. And you're still kind of saying what they thought you were saying. Then be honest in that, you know, like, well, yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. And that is exactly how I feel. Yeah. And, you know, and you guys can move on from there. But like Stephanie's saying, like, honesty. I feel like the only way your sibling's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. But be honest. Just be honest. And I feel like things will work themselves out one way or another.
It's a balance to honesty and kindness. I know
that's always for sure.
You have to be kind as well with honesty. Okay. All right. So that is the end of the live. Thank you guys so much for joining us and talking about this book. Remember, our next book is going to be How to Keep House While Drowning. The full title is, just in case you guys are looking for it and can't find it, it is, yeah, How to Keep House While Drowning, A Gentle Approach to Cleaning and Organizing. I know that sounds lame when you hear the title, but seriously, such a great book. Such a great book. It was recommended to me by some of the people that are in the book club. Super glad that was recommended. And I was like so certain as I was reading it, like, we all need to read this. Our meeting will be on Tuesday, April 30th at 7:00 p.m. For those who don't know, we are meeting every other month, and we typically meet on the last Tuesday of the month if I'm not traveling or if we're not dealing with holidays. So I will see you guys on April 30th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern to talk about how to keep house while drowning. Congratulations to our 2 giveaway winners. Thank you guys so much, and I love you all. See you next time.
Thank you for coming. Of course, this was so great. Thank you guys for being so welcoming.